when you look at farming in the world, the Netherlands especially, and probably Western Europe, but is on the highest standards possible. So when you want to improve the world, it would be the same as a school class. When you would improve the school class, it wouldn't help you to take the best student out. No, you need more of these students.
Exactly.
So actually, they have to export Dutch knowledge to Brazil or to the Ukraine to improve standards up there. But
the governments around the world, they're scared of farmers because you've got big equipment.
yeah, well, that's actually what you see, and we, probably we knew it, and probably we knew it not, but you can see it right now. I look at the stuff which is happening in France right now. Well, it's massive. When you see police blocking highways that farmers can't get through, it's total idiots. When you there's almost an army waiting for the farmers. So yes, that's true.
Well, they did the same in England. They gave the permission for the farmers to demonstrate in central London outside the Parliament. They gave them a licence.
Yes.
They organised it 6 weeks before.
Yes.
And the night before the protest, they removed the licence. The farmers still came.
Yes.
And then they started seizing the tractors and charging them £2,000 to have their tractor.
Yes.
It's a deliberate ploy.
No, they do everything to break up. In farmers, there's also a radical side which say, these actions and these protests, they need to be harder and more. And it's difficult because you only get a certain amount of space, and yes, you have to cross the border, but when you cross it too much, they would take your...
And you've got to try and keep the public support on side as well, haven't you?
Yeah, but the problem is you are not in charge of that. The media is. That's actually a kind of a good part. Most of the people still have common sense. And besides of the mainstream media, they still think good about farmers, What is more reliable than a standalone system of a cow, You can...
Well, exactly. Nature's created a wonderful thing.
Yes, and as long as there's grass or hay to eat, it's producing and it's producing meat. It doesn't need energy. It only needs water and daylight, and that's it. When the whole world would be on fire, when we don't have energy, a cow would still produce milk and produce meat.
People have got to realise we need a different system of governance. Because the system we've got has got us into this mess. It isn't going to get us out of this mess.
No,
and
that's
it doesn't
right.
serve the people. Well, who does it serve? Well, it serves the people it's set up to serve.
Yes.
And it's not going to change.
Okay, so today is Friday, the 9th of January 2026. We're here with Andrew Bridgen, former MP of the United Kingdom, and Jeroen van Maanen, a Dutch farmer.
Yes.
Who is in the middle of all these battles against the government to keep farmers going and thriving.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome.
You yourself are a farmer of, you have cows, or do
yes.
do you also?
I was a dairy farmer till 2 years ago. And then I sold my farm and I rented back. So that's why I'm still living here. But right now I'm raising young stock for another farmer. So I still have cows in my barn, but they are actually someone else's. And yes.
And why did you do that?
Well, actually, all about everything we're talking about, When margins get tighter and perspective is getting farther away, then sometimes you have to make choices. That's and we are in an area up here which is very intensive. We don't have a lot of land because it's very expensive. And now the government is everything basing on be more extensive and have more land. That's no solution up here. It's anyway. I was going to lose the battle myself. So then you have to make changes. Yes.
But the government in Holland has been pushing farmers to go bigger, and invest more for a long time.
It's actually no, yeah. I hear that a lot of times. Well, no, I think nobody was pushing for bigger, but bigger was following the system. When
margins drop, you have to.
That's right.
Economies of scale.
Yes, and that's the main cause is margins were getting tighter, and then the only solution for a farmer to make a living is growing bigger. So
So either he buys his neighbour or he sells to his neighbour to make. But that only lasts for so long until the pressure comes on again. Then they've got to get bigger again, haven't they?
I think right now in Holland, the average dairy farmer is milking around 130, 140 cows. And these are still family farms, but especially the bigger ones, they get so big. And now in Europe, the biggest dairy farmer in Holland is 2,000 cows, something like that. But when you go to America, there's family farms with 10,000s or 100,000s of milking cows. But when the farmer is getting older and a new generation has to come, these farms are getting too big. So the only way to sell the farm is to multinationals or whatever. And that's what's coming up then.
Why is it getting too big? I mean, if you have a very big farm, why is it then too big to hand over to your...
Well, there's too much capital in it. And most of the times they do have to sell a lot of the farm first to make the changes of generations possible. It's very, difficult for the young generations to come in with it. On this place, for me, it was easy, and it was already 15, 20 years ago when I took over for my father, because I'm renting all the land from the government, and the only thing I had was my barn and the small 1.5 hectare. So there's not too much assets in it, but when you have very big farm with also a lot of land, it takes millions, and it's the question is if one or a few people can take it over or even get a finance of the bank. So that's the bigger problem with bigger companies or
But for a layperson, it sounds very illogical, because you have assets and you give it to your son or daughter, whoever wants to continue the farm. So
but what if you've got more children than that and you want to give some of them something? If it's all in the farm, how do they?
Yes, well, that and actually that most of the time not even happening, and the question is, like in my family, my father, I had one brother and sister. My father always said, every one of the children could have the study they wanted and go in the job they want. So the one who's wanting the farm or taking over the farm, well, some things stick with it. You get a lot, but you also get a lot of debt with the bank. So it's not all assets you get, So and for sure, when there's more, you can divide more. But most of the times, the one who's taking over the farm has to get a lot of it, but still need a lot of finance. And like in my case, I needed $1 million. I had the loan of my father and mother and a new one to take it over.
Why do you need a loan to take it over?
Well, the older generation most of the times is moving or going to the village,
they've got to have somewhere to live. They've got to have an income, haven't they?
Yes, need a house and need a way of living. So they get out of it, and most of the times when new farmers take over, you have your plans with the farm, or you need to finance some new things or make some new buildings or whatever, but there's always money needed when one is getting out and the other one's getting in.
So how are the government making it difficult for farmers in the Netherlands now? What are they doing?
Well, start with the beginning of the protest. We had the 1st of October 2019, the first big protest was in Holland. Nitrogen problems weren't even there yet. But that was a big demonstration because farmers didn't feel valued anymore by the people, especially not the government. Rules and laws are getting higher.
So what was the specific issue if it wasn't nitrogen?
Well, it was actually the different parts, the higher rules and standards for every day for Dutch farming. And then in the meantime, cheap imports were coming in. No appreciation by the people, by the government, by the media. I think these were the biggest issues. And right after that, I think 4 days later, the first nitrogen letters were coming from the government. So that's a big part. Well, I think when you look over it, it's the pressure on the farmers actually. raise the standards, the laws, the rules for producing milk or potatoes or whatever. Animal welfare, the use of antibiotics, the use of chemicals to spray on the field to treat your crops.
Can you give an example of the standards, for example, for milk production, how they changed?
Yeah, on everything, I would say, and especially they tighten up everything together. In history, they would also look to animal welfare, to the use of antibiotics, but right now, all the data is coming together and tightened together, and now you need to watch at your CO2 footprint, and that's what actually is making it difficult, because a lot of these things are going against each other. Animal welfare is putting cows outside or in big pens of straw. And that's very good for animal welfare, but not for all environmental issues, because ammonia or nitrate or whatever is all going up, and your margin is going down. So when we always say you can't get a 10 for every chapter. Sometimes you need to aim for a 6 on all the chapters, but right now they're demanding probably an 8 on all chapters, or they prefer a 10, and it's not possible.
Is the Netherlands still? I mean, I think Netherlands was the biggest food exporter in Europe. I mean, obviously, in the UK, we've got a lot of people, and we haven't got so much land, and we haven't got so much farming, so we only produce about half the food that we consume.
Yes.
Like many places in Europe, we've got a lot more mouths to feed.
Whether
we want them or not, we've got them.
Yes.
Our biggest supplier of food for that deficit is the Netherlands.
Yes.
And after that, it's the Republic of Ireland.
Yes.
And both of your countries are under huge pressure to reduce your farming. So it's UK that's going to be short of food. Yes.
That's, and now for sure it's going down, but it's very difficult, because all kinds of data and numbers, you have to look really good through it. If it's fake data or if it's true data, you have to know who is producing the data to know if they're good or not. But for sure it's going down. Yesterday I saw, and that's what the Rabobank said, a big bank in Holland who also is financing a lot of agriculture. Well, they say for the dairy industry, they expect to go down 20% in volume of milk and then dairy products, but it's all over. It's potatoes, it's all kinds of farming. So for sure it's going down, but how much, it's difficult to say, because it's happening every day again. And like in dairy, there's a lot of dairy farms who stop then the fields first when they don't go to nature, but they turn them into, if it's possible, to arable crops like potatoes. So that's one of the reasons potatoes in Holland this year were worth nothing, because there's way too much, So, but for sure production is going down. That's one thing which is for sure. But how much? That's a question.
But I remember, like 1 or 2 years ago, the government then also suddenly started interfering with when you had to harvest what.
Yes, well, that's also a good example of rules or laws. Yes, you had to put your potatoes in before the 1st of June and harvest them before the 1st of October. And yes, actually, as farmers, you laugh about it, because yes, in the beginning of the year we also have a calendar in our mind. But one thing is for sure, it never works out, because sometimes you're harvesting potatoes in September and sometimes it's November. It's nature, and you have to deal with it. So it would be pretty easy when you could take the calendar on the 1st of January and plan the whole year and also your harvest, but it's not going to work out. So. No, and it's still there, I think, and I hope these laws are getting a little easier. I hope, but it's not for sure.
I think there's been a definite shift in that people in the UK do not know where their food comes from, and I don't think it's deliberately not being reported in the mainstream media to educate the future generations.
Yes.
I mean, I think people in England, a lot of them think that the milk comes from the co-op.
But that's I always take the example, you know, in Holland also, and it's not even that far away, like 20, 30, 40 years ago. Before that, there's also a lot of farms right in the village. We were talking about Oosterbeek. My grandparents were living in Oosterbeek and 100 meters away. And it was just in the village. There was a farmer. The cows in the summertime, they were outside walking beside the Rhine. And in the wintertime, they were in the barn. A lot of people came 5 o'clock in the afternoon with a bucket to get milk from the farmer, you know. And he didn't have a system and have a lot of controls by government if his product or if his milk or if his animal welfare was good. It was just people watching him, you know, making a jet. They looked at the farmer, they looked at the cows, and they trusted the milk was good, and it was good. There's a lot of things growing, coming together. It's also the skill of farms, but the distance between customers and producers is way too big, and I don't think it is meant to be on purpose. But right now, there's a lot of people taking advantage of it. And the media is not doing what it should do, informing people how it is, you know, and everything is working in frames. I think the average Dutch citizen is believing that we are producing way too much and everything is getting exported all over the world. And the first bit is true, you know, we are exporting, and it was in the past, I don't know if it's still there, but we were exporting about 75-80% of our production. But at the same time, we are importing 75 or 80% of our consumption. So that's even, you know. We produce way too much dairy and pork and potatoes, but we are importing coffee and bananas and whatever shit is not growing in Holland because it needs to come from a warmer country, you know. So that's what we call trade, and it's about even.
Yeah, you're not growing a lot of oranges, are you?
No, especially not in this weather. So, but I know when the stuff in the Ukraine was starting, you know, we were short of supplies of cattle feed and all kinds of stuff. And they have been, the Thierry Baudet guy was asking questions in the second chamber whether we still would have enough food when the Ukraine crisis would go down. And our Minister of Agriculture at that time said, yes, there's plenty of food because the agriculture sector still is exporting 80% of its production. And that part was true. But he should have mentioned that we were importing 80% also, because you know, they're just repeating the frame that we are producing way too much. And a lot of people, well, they start to believe, well, we could get rid of 80%, go down 80% in production, and then we still would have enough. But it's a lie.
But
right now,
the UK wouldn't have enough.
No. And especially, you know, you mentioned them already, when you let a lot of people new people come in.
Well, we didn't let all of them in, but they came in.
Yes, well, but if they were not allowed, they wouldn't come in.
Exactly.
So that's also a problem. But in Holland, a few years ago, it was a bit on the same level. That when you look at the calories we produce in agriculture, it was about the calories the citizens need. But on this moment, we are already net importing on food. So. You know, when we would have a big war or put a gate around the Netherlands, on this moment we wouldn't have enough food. So, and I think that's for the common people knowledge to know, because they make a lot of decisions on that.
Food security.
Yes, and nobody's talking about it anymore.
No, we had an agricultural bill, a bill for the environment put through about 5 years ago in our parliament. It never mentioned farmers and it never mentioned food.
No.
But it did mention about the environment and how important all of this was.
Yes, and biodiversity and CO2 footprint, and actually that's when you look at the bigger lines, that's what's happening. You know, in the past, people would want to improve the world, which is a good thing, and right now it's changing towards people want to save the planet of the people, you know. And I think when you want to improve the planet, you need people. But That's, you know, and when you plug in all the things, there's the attack on farmers, and it's actually worldwide, you know.
But what they don't realise, they're actually attacking the people, because
yes,
the people are there. They're basically saying the people are the problem now, aren't they?
Yes, but that's the problem, and that's divide and conquer, you know, and it's happening before, and that's what we said already in all these farmer protests. You know, we are the 2% who's making the food, which is consumed by the 98%. But the problem is the people are getting so smart that they don't even realize it, you know. You know, there's people living in the city, never came outside of the city, judging over us and telling farmers what to do, or, oh, well, we can get rid of a lot of farmers who are actually depending for 100% of their life on farmers, but they're telling, oh, we don't need the farmers. So how stupid can you be, you know? It's
well, we have no farmers, no food, and the people, and when you control the food, you control the people.
And that's what actually...
I was 22 years in the food industry. I was running my own company that was handling 5% of all the potatoes in UK, all the fresh potatoes. And many years potatoes were very cheap because there was a surplus, and it's an inelastic market. But when there was a shortage, and it didn't matter if it was a shortage of potatoes or any other food, I mean, people never value food until they think they haven't got enough of it, and then they'd pay anything for it when there isn't any.
No, that's right. That's you're talking about the value of farmers or the value of food, and actually, yeah, I said you mentioned the example of potatoes. Probably when you're talking about the value of food, you have to take the average value of a century, or probably 1.5 century, because I have, you probably know Jan Marijn Poels also. He's making a lot of documentaries. In one of his, I think it's the first one, The Uncertainty Has Settled. It's also very good documentation. But that's a story of a woman in Germany in the war with 6 hungry children coming by a farmer. Wanted to buy a bag of potatoes, and she didn't have any money, but only a little golden chain. The farmer said, oh well, it's a small one, you get half a bag of potatoes. After the war, the farmer went to the jewelry to sell the golden necklace, and it was worth 600,000 Denmark. So then you have, and it's probably one day in a century, but you would have 600,000 Denmarks for half a bag of potatoes. When you put that in the average value of a century,
well, if you're starving, you can't eat the gold chain, can you?
That's right. That's right. That's and there was in Holland there was actually right now, because of the fear of the Russians, you know, the people are getting asked for making their own, how do you call it,
safety package,
yes.
Emergency package.
Well, you have to have a radio on batteries and a zaklamp, how do you call it?
Torch.
Yes, and all kinds of that things. But there was one
bottles of water.
Yes, there was one lady in the media which is actually doing a good job. She said, well, your security package is the farmer close by, you know. And that's what we always...
the security package, we don't have a war with Russia. That's a good security package.
Yes, that's right. That's the first thing at all. But it's true, you know. And that's what we said. In the last war, you know, we had a hunger winter, but people were able, most of them, to walk at the closest farm and buy potatoes or milk or whatever. But when the distance is getting bigger, and actually distance is getting bigger, it's gonna be a problem then, you know. That's so.
But to sum it up for foreign viewers abroad, because in England the inheritance tax is a big thing. Is
Yes.
that an issue here? Because we have CO2, we have nitrogen that are norms that you have to.
The nitrogen problem is the biggest, well, it's actually a made-up problem, but it's the biggest...
Well, you can't sort out a made-up problem, can you?
How do you mean it?
If it's not a real problem, you can never solve it, can you?
No, but that's the biggest question of all the problems right now. But there's, first of all, there's too many people living off problems, you know. Nobody's living off a solution. Yeah. When we would change that, you know, when then you're talking about a system, but then you have a lot of workless people for the government. What are you going to do with them, you know? So there's a lot of people
that's like the old saying, you know, how many people work for the government? And the answer is probably about half of them, really. If we could only find out which half are actually working.
And actually, the ones who are not working are probably cheaper than the ones who are working.
Probably costing us less. You're right.
So, but there's people actually working to keep the problems, you know. So there's no a prickle. How do you say it? On making
Incentive.
a solution. Yeah. So. But right now the nitrogen thing is holding everything tight, and you know the farmers don't have a permit.
But the limit for nitrogen here is much more difficult for farmers than it is in Germany, right? If you can...
Yes, that's right. It's when Germany would say 21 mol. And it's 1 mole is 14 grams, so it would be 280 grams of nitrogen is allowed in Germany on 1 hectare a year. And in Holland we say 0.005 mole is allowed. So, but it's actually, you know, first of all, nitrogen should be a nature problem, and that's what. And I always say, you know, it's a big Christmas tree and there's all branches on it. But in every branch, in every chapter, there's something wrong. There isn't a nature problem. Probably in about 10 or 20% of the nature, there is something wrong or should something to be improved. But most of the times it's not even happening right now, because these nature companies, you know, also they get a lot of money to improve nature, but they're getting money when the nature is not good on paper. So money is still coming in when nature is not good, and when nature is good, they don't get any money. So what's happening? Nature will never improve on paper. But right now, when you look at the true numbers, 80% of the nature is fine. And also when we would look at it with common sense, well, 100% of nature would be good, because nature is always changing. The world around us is always changing. We're living with 20 million people in Holland. That's a lot different with 100 years ago, when we would live with 4 million people here. So you can't expect nature to be the same as 100 years ago, you know, even with the wolves and all that kind of crap. It's not gonna work. So what do you expect? But some things, they are tied together, you know, in a very intensive country like Holland. Well, you can expect to have nature besides that. And when you want a jungle, you need to go to Brazil. And when you want to have real old-fashioned nature, you should probably go to the eastern part of Europe, you know. So that's the nature part. But well, they made a big system around it, which is calculating every emission of nitrates also like.
Have you noticed though, they never try and calculate the carbon footprint of war?
No, that's right. That's right.
No one ever talks about the carbon footprint of
going
to
war. But the problem is they talk in that chapter. They don't talk about anything else. You know.
No, it trumps everything, doesn't it?
We talk about transport or the airplanes or whatever. Everything has to be done to take these other sectors down on the chart, and farmers are pushed up, you know. And when you look at the last 30 years or something on about all the emissions, farming is the only sector which gone down, whether it's on nitrogen, whether it's on methane, or whether it's on everything you say. And when you look at all the other sectors, everything has gone up, you know.
Have the Dutch farmers been forced to, dairy farmers been forced to supplement the feed with Bovaer, and what's the public response to this? Because it's not selling in the UK. It's gone down a lot. People want to have organic now and get away from having additives in there.
No, it's not forced in Holland. There are some dairy plants who do have a stream when you where you have to feed it, but it's not a real big thing. So yes, there are farmers feeding it, I don't know how much.
Well, why do they have to feed it?
Well, actually, when you are
take the methane, reduce the methane.
Yes, when you are producing under a CO2 label that your milk is having a lower CO2 footprint, well, you have to do some things, that don't feed soybeans from Brazil, or and one of the things is also feeding that stuff, which should get the methane emissions out of a cow down, whether it's working or not. But
it's a choice of the farmer to choose that particular thing.
Yes,
okay.
you get and it's a whole package with things you have to do, and then at the end you get 5 cents a liter more for your milk or something. And then feeding bovar is one of the things, but it's not a big issue on this moment. We saw when problems in Denmark came. Yes, a little bit of attention came, but I don't know. I think that the average Dutch citizen has no clue about it.
No.
So, but that's the problem with almost.
But there was an experiment as well with Campina, right? There was a.
Yes, they did some proofs with it, whether it's working or not. But that's also a thing. You can feed the stuff, and for me, these are natural processes, and feeding a cow stuff which is lowering the gases he's putting out, it sounds to me like a little crazy already. But let it work, let it be. But no one ever measured, when I would, I'm not producing milk anymore, but when I would start feeding bovar, no one ever measured the emissions of methane out of it. So we are doing something to get a green wink on a screen of a computer.
But I mean, this thing about methane, yes, it is a greenhouse gas, and it's 8 times worse than carbon dioxide. But I mean, carbon dioxide isn't what people think it is. But there's a methane cycle in the world. So 10 to 12 years after the methane's produced, it breaks down to carbon dioxide and water.
Yes.
And if you haven't got any more cattle than you had 12 years ago, there won't be any more methane in the cycle, because the methane being produced today by the cows is breaking down from 12 years ago, and it's gone.
And that's right. And when you
it's
look
a cycle.
And when you look at that worldwide, there is way less cattle on the planet than there was 50 or 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
And well, what do you want to save? When we would want to save the planet, well, how do you measure it? What is needed to improve? It would be nature, I guess. But actually, CO2 is needed for nature. Take a tree; it needs CO2 like we need oxygen.
It's the gas of life.
Yes.
But are farmers aware of the health risks of them handling bovar or not?
Well, no. I think most of the farmers are just like the average citizens, probably quite unaware. The ones who are aware probably are not using it or don't want to use it. And some others don't know it or don't look into it or know. Because I think when you are aware or are scared for it, you don't use it. So,
but don't farmers inform each other? I mean, like there's a sterility thing, right? You don't.
No, but that's probably people get immune also, and we have a lot of like the chemicals to spray on the crops. Probably it's also not really good for your own health, but it's used also, and you take a lot of safety things when you work with it. So yes. When you're not allowed in Holland to take a bag from the ground heavier than 25 kilos, and a farmer is carrying a calf for 50 kilos. So every day when we would look at the safety instructions, every day we are doing things which are not allowed. So I think the average approach from a farmer is, it's kind of crap, I'm just doing my thing and watch for it. Whether if the warnings are true or fake, I don't know. So I would never like to feed it, but sometimes it's a financial thing also. When you because of the tight margins, 5 cents on a liter milk sounds for outsiders, well, it's peanuts. But 5 cents on a farm like I had, it's 50 or 60,000 euros a year. That would be my total net income of a year. So for a dairy farmer, 5 cents is a lot of money. So when your margins,
extra, you mean?
yes, but when your milk, right now milk price is going down and we're around or probably even under 40 euro cents. There's a lot of farms losing money.
40 euro cents per liter.
Yes, but losing money. So when you could add 5 cents, the biggest problem of a farmer, he is not making his own price. You have to sell to the prices which are the market prices. And right now it's 40 cents for a liter of milk. Half a year ago, milk was 60 cents. And 60 cents was pretty good, but 40 cents is way too low. So on this moment, probably farmers would be earlier to step into these programs, which allow you to earn 5 cents more for a liter milk, because sometimes it can be essential. That's yes.
But then, if you lose your cows, like a lot of farmers did in Denmark, it doesn't.
Yes, it's
in
costing
the long
you.
term,
Yes.
It's not lucrative.
But the problem is, like the Beauvoir thing, you can't say, because there's also a lot of farmers feeding it and don't have any problems. Whether it's working on the CO2 thing or not, that's a big question, because it's never getting measured. But yes, that's true. When you have the problems, for sure it's costing you more money than you gain with it. But because of a lot of farmers also feeding it without problems, and that's the difficult part. That and they are looking into it. Well, what kind of farmers or systems or rations or cows
but
have
the
problems?
whole strategy of keeping the farmers on very tight margins means that they can be influenced by any incentive the government want to make them change their behaviour.
The independent farmer is a threat for a lot of systems or people or who want to build another future, because yes, it's true. Keeping, how do you say, in the past I would say...
Keep the farmers on the breadline.
Yes, that's right, because then you
can manoeuvre them, you can manipulate them.
Yes.
But I mean, the governments around the world, they're scared of farmers because you've got big equipment.
Yeah, well, that's actually what you see, and we, probably we knew it, and probably we knew it not, but you can see it right now. I look at the stuff which is happening in France right now. Well, it's massive. When you see police blocking highways that farmers can't get through, it's total idiots. There's almost an army waiting for the farmers. So yes, that's true.
They did the same in England. They gave the permission for the farmers to demonstrate in central London outside the Parliament. They gave them a licence.
Yes.
They organised it 6 weeks before.
Yes.
And the night before the protest, they removed the licence. The farmers still came.
Yes.
And they started seizing the tractors and charging them £2,000 to have their tractor.
Yes.
It was a deliberate ploy.
No, they do everything to break up stuff like that also, and that's a big problem. We had, sometimes a little of it. There's also in farmers, there's also a radical side which say, these actions and these protests, they need to be harder and more, and it's difficult because you only get a certain amount of space, and yes, you have to cross the border, but when you cross it too much, then they would take your...
And you've got to try and keep the public support on side as well, haven't you?
Yeah, but the problem is you are not in charge of that, the media is. So actually, and that's what we also sometimes said, we can do whatever we want because we are blamed anyway by the media. So the people, and I would say that's actually a kind of a good part. Most of the people still have common sense, and besides of the mainstream media, they still think good about farmers, and people. Well, I compare it sometimes. I don't know if you have them in England also, but we would have the Jehovah getuigen, people coming on the door. And
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes, that's right. But normal average people, they get fed up with it, and the whole left-wing, earth-saving, climate-saving, against meat, we have to eat more plants. People are getting fed up with it, and that's what
they're
happening.
Telling us we're going to have to eat bugs and insects.
Yes, well,
they're not very keen on that where I live, really.
No, and I don't think, and actually I think people are eating bugs way earlier than they know themselves, but that's a different thing. But people are, I think they sense through, or
well, I think the public generally don't see farmers as radicals.
No.
So if they're, they've got a lot of work to do, there's enough work to fill all the days. If they're out protesting, it must be something important.
Yes.
And that's a very good perception for the public to have, because I think it's correct. I mean, farmers would rather not be protesting, wouldn't they? They don't enjoy the protest.
That's right. No, none of them would do it when there wasn't a big purpose for it. That's
exactly.
And that's actually. Well, especially in Europe, England is getting hot. Like in Greece, I don't know what issues they have in Greece, but there's a lot of farmer protesters up there also. Well, Germany had them. In Holland, we had them. Probably we started with it. So yes, there is a lot going on, and especially for Europe, and that's. Yeah, I would say for European citizens, it's quite an important matter, because farming is under attack and production is going down. So what are we going to eat?
So because of the farmers' protests in England, Wales and Scotland, the government have backed down a little bit on the inheritance tax.
Yes.
They've increased the lower threshold to £2.5 million before the inheritance tax will come in. But I mean, they think that might have bought the farmers off a bit.
Yes.
But really, it's like a burglar stealing your goods and then giving you half the goods back. It's not really acceptable.
No. It's a cigar out of your own box. That's That's now you see that a lot of times, and it's also in we can talk about all kinds of problems. One of the bigger. And it's I most of the times talk in movements, because you can place a lot of things under it. There's a movement from people have to eat less animal products and more plant-based products. I think
but
actually
that's not the advice that Robert Kennedy Jr. has just put out last night in America about new dietary. He's saying you need proteins, you need good quality proteins. Eggs, meat,
for sure, but the problem is, and actually on this moment,
they're getting very expensive in England now.
Yes.
Meat's going very expensive.
We should feed the people the most healthy things because they thrive on. But then you have it again, and probably the biggest example for that is America. I won't know, 50 or 60% of the Americans is way too fat. But when you look in the food industry is about the biggest industry, like 40 years ago, we changed fats, especially animal fats, because it would harm your health. We replaced it with sugars and fast carbon hydroxides. And for sure, that's not healthy,
No.
But we still, look at everything which is for sale in the supermarket. Well, when you
noticed as well that the healthy food, the good, wholesome, good proteins are very expensive, and the super processed foods are very cheap, aren't they?
Yes, that's right. So
food is cheap.
There is a push on it already, and it's going even more. And in Holland, I think that's what they say. I don't know it, but we are consuming at this moment 60% animal products, 40% plant-based, and it needs to flip around 60% plant-based, but. Now, actually, we are omnivores, need animal proteins and also especially the fats, and especially like kids or older people or pregnant women, these categories need it even more. So I would say when you raise your health of your population, healthcare costs are going down, etc., but that's also solving a problem which they don't want to have solved because there's a lot of money involved.
And also, I hate to be cynical, but I mean, poor, badly educated, unhealthy people are much easier to control than the opposite.
Yes, that's right. But actually, and you see it. I always said, people started to increase above apes when they started eating meat, you know. And there's I would say you see the reverse thing happening right now. A lot of people getting vegan. Well, look at them, you know. Probably sometimes we have a bit too much condition, but when you look at these people, it's like they lived 5 years in a concentration camp, you know. And well, you can't speak out hard about it actually, but when you hear about things they say, it's like they're mentally ill also, you know. It's that's what's happening, you know. So yes, for sure I am convinced. And look at a child, or and most people also. When I come home and when I'm hungry, you know, I look into the fridge and I always take a piece of cheese or meat. You know, you never take. When you're hungry, you never take a bit of lettuce to solve your hunger, because it's not going to help, you know. You always take the concentrated, highly animal feed products. So, I'm convinced that we need it. So the push on it to eat less and then eat... Well, and actually that's one of the biggest problems in all these discussions. Lots of people are saying that what we have to change, but they don't say, or they don't calculate, what do we eat then? Mm-hmm. You know, and then you can make very nice calculations, you know. We start to eat less meat, so then we need 100,000 less cows in Holland. We have a lot less methane or nitrogen.
But they're talking about creating. Bill Gates wants to creating lab-generated artificial meat.
Yes, that's idiot. It's.
I think anyone who goes and eats that, I mean, you're taking your life in your hands, because we know that Bill Gates wouldn't promote anything that was bad for us, would he, Uncle Bill?
Well, no,
he's had to look after us. We can rely on him.
Yes, actually, when he says something is good, he means that some 100,000 people are getting less. So no, that's also already one thing, but.
And there was the biggest insect farm in Europe that despite having 600 million euros of support,
they went bankrupt or not?
The other week, didn't it? So
well, that's actually one good part, and it's you know, you have a few different branches. You have the lab grown meat, and you have the fake meat, and you also have the vegetarian options. But all the meatless products. All these different brands are not making any money, you know. You have the Beyond Burger and
well, that's why they're having to try and force people to have. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, all the environmental things. If it was really good for you, you wouldn't have to make people.
Well, they always told me that whatever problem you have, when you would make a solution, it should be simple, it should be cheap, and it should be with nature. And when it's not simple or not cheap or it's against nature, it's not going to work, you know. And for sure, all these vegetarian or lab-grown meat, you know, when I would serve it to my dog, and when he could choose, he would never eat it.
But I saw a very good paper that said the environmental cost of lab-produced meat was 20 times higher than
well, for sure it is.
But they're not going to tell you that.
No, but you know, I would also, especially in this world, and it's, I think, a good thing. You know, we have way more risk on every attack. You know, when it's a cyber attack or when it's an attack on the energy system. But what is more reliable than a standalone system of a cow, you know? You can...
Well, exactly. Nature's created a wonderful thing.
Yes, well, probably on this moment, the snow is getting back, but even in this time of year, you could throw it out, and as long as there's grass or hay to eat, you know, it's producing, and it's producing meat. It doesn't need energy, it only needs water and daylight, and that's it, you know? When the whole world would be on fire, when we don't have energy, a cow would still produce milk and produce meat. So how safe can you be? And then we would throw it in a lab. You need lots of energy. You need lots of antibiotics. You know, they're not talking about the input of lab-grown meat, because then ordinary people...
And if the electricity goes off, then you haven't got any food, have you?
No. So you are depending on a lot of things. And it, you know, it can't be good when you think about it. You know, what... I say with technology, you know, it's very smart to come up with these solutions, but not everything which is smart is good.
And the human body can't adapt that quickly. We're very slow to adapt. We've developed to where we are over millions of years, and you know what we should eat is what we should eat.
Yes, that's right, and also, and you see that, and it's probably a different chapter, but you know, when with the vaccinations, but it's kind of the same as the lab-grown meat. You know, yes, they are. They can take a few stem cells of an animal and then let it grow as meat in a lab. But yes, self-growing things, you know, it's a kind of scary, you know, and that's what you see with the vaccinations also, you know. When there's people dying and they take their blood, you know, there's stuff in their blood which is still growing when these people are dead, you know. It's dangerous. So, but I think a lot of people don't. You asked, are they not concerned? I think they don't know or they don't want to know. Because when they would know it, you know, it's kind of scary, isn't it? You know, it's easier to
trust the science.
Yes. But the science is bought, you know.
Yes.
There hardly is no independent science. And it's logical that it isn't, but there's always one who gave the money for... researching something, and that's, you know, I read, and it's there for ages already. Look at what happened with eating fats. You know, there was an American professor. He got the research. You have to look at what's happening when people are eating fat. Well, what the guy did was he was looking for groups of people. First, he took people eating a lot of fat, having a lot of problems, and he took a group eating less fat, having less problems. So at the beginning of his research,
he selected.
Yes, and it's the same. You know, look at the I don't know how you call
see
it.
The latest information on cholesterol in your blood.
It's the same.
After 50, the higher level of cholesterol you've got in your blood on average, the longer you live.
But cholesterol is also
it's every cell wall in your body, your brain.
Yes. It's you know, eggs are blamed for it, and
they're really good for you.
Yes, but that's again, you should do what the government is not advising you, like, and it's also an old thing, like how you call it, fluoride. You know it in.
Yes.
It's actually started by the aluminium industry
to get rid of a byproduct that was very expensive to get rid of.
I don't know why it's used in the aluminium industry, but it was used there. And before, because the directors of the aluminium industry already expected it to be dangerous. So before they had claims from their workers, they hired a bunch of science people. You know, you have to research fluoride and come with the advantages of it. And it's gone that far because that science machine went on very successfully. You know, we added it to our drinking water for a long time when we were small. You know, when you
they're still increasing the areas in England that are using it.
Yes.
Even now.
Yes.
I mean, Germany
stopped
the
drinking water.
Yes, Germany stopped it all 14 years ago. America are stopping it now.
Yes.
And we're still increasing it in England. They're putting it into new areas.
Yes. It's terrible, and that's also, you know.
There's no doubt that children drinking that water, they have lower IQ.
Yes, and lower own will or own thought, or you know, it's easier to making people follow the system. You know, they don't think too much, or they're not able to think again. But no, it's also a thing, and there's a lot of things, you know, which are researched and science looked over it, and they make big reports, you know, and the usage of science is all selective, you know, all the reports which support the narrative are being used. There's in the same time a lot of reports also which are against the narrative, you know, whenever, you know.
We've even had scientific publications and medical publications, like The Lancet is very famous. And the former editor of The Lancet said a few years ago that he suspected that at least half of the reports are just made up.
Yes,
that they run as science.
Yes. No, that's right. And that's, well, you see, a big pattern on not only on the agricultural matter, but on everything, you know.
And I'll let you into a secret. Politicians don't tell the truth.
No, that's right.
So you've got the scientists, you've got the media, and you've got the politicians.
Yes. But when you and that's where a lot of people base their opinion on the news or the media. Well, all the news which we are getting, there's people who have decided that you get this news and you don't get that news. So the normal, ordinary people can't make up a true based opinion based on truth, because they get selected information, So that's probably how you manage a crowd somewhere, but for sure it's not working, and it's not democracy either,
Well, also, I think the biggest power that the mainstream media have is, like the BBC. I mean, they actually decide what's the news and what's not the news.
Yes.
It's what they refuse to report.
Yes.
It's just as important. That's massive power.
And hence the big rise of alternative media.
Because people have lost confidence. I think it was Malcolm X, the civil rights leader in America, that was assassinated.
You want some?
Oh yes, please. And one of his famous quotes I like is, he said that the media have the most power in the world because they have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent.
Yes, that's right.
And they do.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
I think we need to round off for our next visit. If there's anything you want to still say briefly about Mercosur, the deal with South American countries that is now being discussed and voted on.
Well, actually, it's a kind of. I didn't divide it. It's one of the things which are making farmers really angry. We're talking about the rules,
lower food standards.
Yes. But the consumers in Holland are allowed to eat food which we are not allowed to produce. When you go to other countries like Brazil or whatever, they're using chemicals, they're using medicine on animals, which we are not allowed anymore. So the standards are different. So the cost price will be a lot lower up there. So we are forced out of the market, and cheap imports is
so that even with the transport costs, they'll be able to undercut you.
Yes, for sure. It's and the rest of the difference is making these trade deals, and in every trade deal, food or farming products are always on the last pages, because it's a non-issue. What is about the Mercosur deal? They want to export German cars to Brazil. That's the main part of it, And on a few of the last pages, well, then we have to import 100,000 tons of Brazilian meat or whatever. So, but it's not serving anything. And especially, when in Holland, all the people, and especially politicians, have their mouth full of, we need to save the planet, we need to lower our CO2 footprint.
It's not just their mouths that are full, though, it's the pockets that are full as well.
Yes, that's right. But we are creating a problem, we are scaring the people of that problem, and then the solution is throw it over the border and don't look at it anymore. And that's what's happening,
And by encouraging more beef production in Brazil, they'll be cutting down more of the rainforest as well for more land and more crops and more feed for the cattle.
Yes.
But that'll be all right. But they even cut a massive road into the forest, into the just for the last COP meeting, didn't they?
Yes, but that's what's happening, and when we always said, when you look at farming in the world, the Netherlands especially, and probably Western Europe, but is on the highest scale standards possible. So when you want to improve the world, it would be the same as a school class. When you would improve the school class, it wouldn't help you to take the best student out. No, you need more of these students.
Exactly.
So actually, they have to export Dutch knowledge to Brazil or to the Ukraine to improve standards up there. But what are we doing now? It's the same in Holland. We have these chicken in the small cages long time ago, and people were arguing about it. Is that animal welfare? And it's probably a good question. The cage wasn't too big. It was really safe because the chickens didn't get ill and they didn't have salmonella and all that stuff which chicken have, which are outside, but that's a different discussion. But these small cages, they were forbidden. But what happened is they don't get thrown away. No, they put on lorries, drove to the Ukraine. These farms were financed actually by the Rabobank, which was our national bank.
Especially for farmers.
Well, and now, on this moment, 80% of the eggs which is used in baking products is coming from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
So there's probably even more chicken in small cages, but they're not in Holland. So in Holland, the people are doing... No.
We're exactly the same in the UK. I spoke to engineers that dismantled our coal-fired power stations.
Yes, yes.
And they were not scrapped. The inside of the power stations were dismantled, put onto trucks, sent to the ports. They were sent to China.
Yes,
and they were reassembled within months.
Yes.
That power station would have been producing the same emissions in China, and we were paying more for our electricity in England, and they're making our goods cheaply.
That's right. No, that's what's happening. So you're making yourself dependent on everything, especially on countries where you don't want to be dependent on, and it's not solving any problems. Now it's making, well, the first question is there a problem? But it's for sure making the problems bigger.
So you know how Bill Gates always seems to know what's going to happen next. What is it concerning that Bill Gates is now the biggest agricultural landowner in America?
Yes, it is. It is, but that's what I said. The movement from independent family farms to bigger scale multinationals. Bill Gates.
It's a good job he's a philanthropist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, on that note, I thank you both very much for this talk. Thank you, Jeroen.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
keep farming.
Yes, yes, that's what we try, and that's what all the farmers try, I think. And yes, but I think we are, like me, ready for a whole big change, or how you say it, I don't know, but the question is, what's it going to be,
Well, I think the people have got to stand with the farmers around the world. If we don't stand with the farmers,
but is that going to happen? And before that, the knowledge of the common people is at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I go down to the supermarket, and that's the only 5 minutes I think about and care for my food, and they don't even think about it. So as long as the supermarkets are full, people don't start to think about it.
But when the supermarkets are empty, it'll be too late, because there won't be. The chain's already broken.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
It'll be too late when there's no.
Like on this kitchen table, I think for 30 years already, I'm saying, well, two things need to be there: either war or hunger or both. But well, right now I'm that far that hunger is making people aware of a problem, but it's too late, like you said. And when there's war or hunger, people are not buying anything from the farmer again. They just start to steal it. So a farmer is not...
I think we prevent the hunger and prevent the war. That would be a very good thing.
Okay, with that we...
Thank you for having us.
Yes. That's great.